welcome to I Caught It on Audio. This is Water Cooler Chat episode 16, The Rings of Power, season 1, episode 5.
Hello and welcome to another episode of I Got It on Audio, a 64 Tacos podcast. Today we are going to be continuing our water cooler chat about the Amazon Prime show The Rings of Power. We are going through the first season, and today we'll be talking about episode 5, which is titled Partings. I'll just read a quick synopsis off the Wikipedia, hopefully be better at reading words than last week. While protecting Nori from the other Harfoot from a wolf pack, the stranger injures his arm due to his own magic. He heals it using conjured ice water, but it blasts Nori away with a shockwave, frightening her. In Numenor, Galadriel convinces Halbrand to join the expedition to Middle-earth after retelling her battles and losses against Sauron. At the same time, Kemen, son of Pharazôn, attempts to destroy the expedition ships, believing Galadriel and Miriel will take the fall and allow Pharazôn to rise to power with the people's support. However, he is caught by Isildur, who is rewarded with a spot on the expedition crew. In Lindon, Gil-galad reveals to Elrond his knowledge of and intention to use Dwarvish mithril to extend the existence of the elves. Elrond admits this discovery to Durin, and they return to Khazad-dûm to try and convince King Durin. In the Southlands, half the townspeople cave to Adar's demands to join him, believing him to be Sauron. Theo shows the broken sword to Arondir, who realizes it is the key to warp the Southlands into Sauron's realm of evil. Seeing their watchtower as a target, the remaining townspeople prepare for battle against the approaching orc army. So we got to see all our groups in this episode. Matt, what did you think about the splitting of the humans in the Southlands?
It wasn't a surprise. We already knew the one guy was aligned with Sauron's forces and was loyal to him still. I don't know how the remaining ones think that they could survive a siege. There's not a lot of them, and they were already running low on food and supplies. So I think their best bet would be to flee, honestly.
Yeah, you got to think that it was kind of a not siding with evil and dying is better than siding with evil type thing, because otherwise there's no explanation as to why they would stay, because it does seem hopeless. Dan, what do you think about all that?
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. A lot of people make decisions based on what's best for them, not on sort of a grand moral ideology, because they're in the moment and they do what they got to do. So some people were like, whatever his name is, the old man whose barn housed the weird part sword that Theo found, that guy. Some wish to use Sauron to sort of bring them back up to their power. And I imagine a lot of them simply didn't want to die,
Right.
So
how long ago was it that Sauron was a thing? Like,
well, we know
seems
that
like the way they talk is like it was a long time ago.
Yeah, because Galadriel quested for hundreds of years to find and completely eradicate Sauron after the last defeat of them, I believe. So it's been some time.
Well, we know for sure that Arondir has been, I think he said 72 years or 75 years or something, that he was personally watching over these people.
Right.
But I think the timeline with Galadriel implies that it's been maybe a dozen generations or more since they were directly under the power of Sauron. So this guy clearly wasn't alive then.
Yeah, well, that's what is making me think about it, because he seems like really loyal for someone who's never experienced it.
Well, I think he just hates the way they're living, the sort of they're looked down upon by their guardians, the elves, because they don't trust them, which, for cause, I suppose. And so he sees this as a, what, if they're going to think the worst of us, why not embrace the power, that exists, that can raise us up regardless of whether we think it's evil or good. Right. So I think it's just a selfish reaction to being in a bad position.
Yeah. So what are our thoughts on the whole Elrond and the dwarves situation and the new mythology about the creation of Mithril? I'm not sure if there's any basis for this prior to the show, but this is the first I've heard of it. As far as I know, this was never part of the lore prior to the show. Now, is that true, Dan? Do you know?
I don't know specifically. I don't remember this level of detail about. I don't even remember if Mithril is supposed to hold the light from the tree. I'm not sure if that's invented or not. I just don't remember, or perhaps never knew. But it's feasible, I suppose.
It's a really cool story. I mean, basically, a pure elf was battling a Balrog to try and save a tree, and then the tree got struck by lightning while they were doing it. The lightning surged all the way down into the ground to the base of the mountain and created Mithril, which I think is an awesome little story.
It's a cool myth.
Whether it's invented or not,
it doesn't really matter. I don't think.
Well, and most myths have some level of truth behind them, no matter how small. So it's just cool, like whatever the reality of it is. But I was a little annoyed by the king being like, "Oh, our tree's dying, and I bet you found Mithril, huh?"
Well, it seemed like he knew that he had found Mithril already, and it was like a test for Elrond.
Yeah,
which is a little bit weird.
That bothered me a little, and it might be answered later, but
maybe we're not meant to know how he knew yet. Just like Elrond didn't know that he knew. No.
Yeah, but if it's something the dwarves are keeping super secret, it's just weird that the elf king, who doesn't really have relations with them much,
right?
Knew, and that part bothered me a little. But it might get worked out. Sometimes these things get worked out.
And it could have just been they had heard rumors, so they weren't sure. But because I mean, when you look at how Durin and Disa have protected their secrets, well, it didn't take Elrond very long to figure out what was going on. So it's possible that there's been whispers here and there, and they were like, "Ooh, I wonder if that's this, and maybe we can use that."
It didn't take Elrond long to figure it out, but it did take Elrond going to them.
Right.
Like, they don't leave the mountain often, so it's not like rumors really vibrate out of that mountain too much.
Yeah, who knows? I guess maybe we'll find out. Maybe we won't. But yeah, that was I don't know if it was bad, but it was a little. The elves can be devious and foolish and proud as well. They're not perfect or anything.
Of course.
So that can work, especially if they're worried about their existence in the long term. You can't blame them for trying to keep themselves alive.
So back in Numenor, we've got. Galadriel finally gets them on board, if you will, to send some ships and some troops over to Middle-earth, and shenanigans happen. Well, first we've got the whole little battle fake battle, I guess, with Galadriel taking on all the Numenorians recruits, which was kind of a neat little fight scene. Again, showing the elves' expertise at swordsmanship.
This isn't the most important thing, and I know that this is a super common trope, but man, when they're fighting with real swords like that, it's so dumb. They're gonna hurt each other.
The same thing.
They're gonna damage the edges of the swords. Like,
you can't
have practice swords.
I don't know.
Like,
Well, they don't look as cool.
but it's not just a show. It's everything. So okay,
Yeah.
whatever. But it always mildly annoys me, no matter what context. But it was a really cool scene. There was some cool sword fighting stuff.
Yeah.
You know, I thought it was. You know, it's a really cliche scene.
Of
but
course.
I thought they did a pretty good job with it. You know, considering.
Yeah. It was still fun. It was fun seeing Galadriel, be another great elf warrior, so that was neat. And then, the whole, was it Kemen destroying the ships?
Yeah, blowing up the casks of oil or whatever flammable liquid was in there. That was a little bit weird.
First of all, why are they carrying these flasks of extremely
I thought it was
flammable
some
oil?
kind of strong alcohol, is what I took it as.
It looked like oil. You're right. It could have been some really viscous alcohol. It just
Perhaps, yeah.
looked like oil to me.
But it was so volatile that the ship next to the one on fire blew up. Like, this doesn't seem very smart or safe from a nation that's known to be seafaring. It didn't quite add up.
Oh, it's for the jet engines in the boats.
I forgot that.
Yeah,
good point.
Yeah, that's how they get to Middle Earth.
Or maybe they're like a Mediterranean type society, so they really like their olive oil for cooking.
Yeah.
Olive oil bursts into flames, right?
That's how I use it.
It's my understanding.
All right. Yeah. So that was a little. It wasn't my favorite moment in the episode. I'll just put it that way. I realized it was meant to be a fun, a sensational way to get Isildur to be accepted as a crew member, but it just didn't quite seem to add up very well.
It doesn't because, okay, 2 guys survived this explosion, right?
Right. That
we know of. And so your reward for surviving this explosion is you get to join the crew, not, hey, what the hell were you doing on this boat you had no business being by?
Right.
Yeah, they really sort of glossed over. He's like, oh, he was on a fishing boat. Why the son of the advisor to the queen was on a fishing boat? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
But he was on a fishing boat, and so I had to. Oh, I think one of the casks exploded, right? And Elendil's like, all right, well, good job, son.
Yeah.
There wasn't a whole lot of like, wait, how did this happen? Who did this? Do we, they mentioned maybe it was brigands. They don't know. Okay, whatever. That we know that the Numenorians aren't the smartest anyway because they don't exist in the Third Age. You know what I mean? So like, so perhaps a little bit of foolishness is understandable.
Yeah, that's a good point. And then we've got the Harfoot. We got to spend a little time on the trail with the Harfoot, Nori, and the gang. We had the stranger who still doesn't have a name, as far as I can tell. Why they wouldn't just start calling him something, I don't know. But yeah, it was a pretty good use of the old Thunderwave spell there by the stranger, straight out of 5th edition Player's Handbook to get the wolves scared away.
They were. I know it said wolves in the Wikipedia description, but didn't they look like wild boars? Kind of.
I think they referred to them as wolves in the shore too.
Yeah, they looked like a cross between wolves and boars. I thought they were boars when they were running up, but their heads were definitely some kind of mutated wolf thing.
Yeah.
I thought maybe wargs because they were really big, but I don't know. They're not wolves.
Yeah, and they may be what become wargs. Like, I don't know if we've seen wargs yet, but they're certainly somewhere between a wolf and a warg, because it definitely was not just your basic wolf that you see in reality. Yeah, so we got to see some wild magic, if you will, and he definitely rolled a 1 on his wild surge and injured himself drastically. And then then what else was going on? There was um the forest they were going through didn't have any was pretty much dead.
Yeah.
And what was it? They thought that may be due to the stranger.
Yeah, so they were talking about taking the wheels from the
Yeah.
carts.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're very superstitious, the Harfoots, and understandably, they're not very powerful and they're tiny, and so they're worried about their survival as a group above all other things, which you can understand.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just one person advocating for it, and it seemed like the leader wasn't super excited about the idea.
Right. What do you guys think of this episode overall?
I think it continues in the "this is pretty good" vein. Still hasn't really erupted into there have been some really cool visual and music moments, but there haven't been a ton of if I'm comparing them to the Peter Jackson the Lord of the Rings trilogy, they haven't had the Balrog at the in Khazad-dûm at the bridge.
Mm-hmm.
Gandalf, arriving on the dawn of the fifth day.
Right.
They haven't had these thrilling wow moments yet. And now we're just past halfway now, right? There's still time for that. So I'm just right now. I'm like, this is good. I'm enjoying this. I kind of like the slow building. I kind of like the slow pace, but I will, if the next 3 episodes are in the same vein, I'll be like, that was pretty good, and I'll watch the next season.
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of hoping that things go up a notch at some point.
Yeah,
it hasn't really wowed me yet, other than some visual and music stuff. But
I agree. It needs to take a step to get that wow factor, like you said. But yeah, I'm certainly enjoying it. It's well worth the time I've invested in it so far. But yeah, it's not perfect. There's definitely some flaws. What about you, Matt?
I agree with you that it's really good and enjoyable. I disagree about the wow factor thing. I'm enjoying the slower pace. I feel like something really crazy might feel like it's coming out of left field at this point with how we've been moving. There are definitely stories I'm far more invested in than others. The Gladriel Isildur thing, I find really boring, even though it's probably going to be the most important part later.
Right.
But I love the Elrond dwarf part. That's probably my favorite. And the Harfoot are really fun. So I'm excited to see where it's going.
Cool. Has anybody changed their opinions on who they think Sauron is?
I am now pretty sure it's the 4th option.
We haven't met them yet.
Yep, Halbrand feels like they're steering him towards being that king. Still don't think it's a stranger. Adar kind of said or implied that he's not. I don't think that's Sauron either. Now we did see these 3 new white elvish like creatures at one point early in the episode.
Yeah.
And they spent a lot of time looking at the one with the sort of blue eyes and the longer nose, like the sort of striking looking one. That maybe that that looked elvish, looked fair in a way, like a
right.
fair and as in light, dressed in white, and in that way. But so I feel like whoever that is maybe now my number one. I'm pretty sure the 3 that we were discussing as possibilities are probably not. That's where I'm at.
How about you, Matt?
I think I'm on with Dan's thoughts. I think Adar is out. He seemed to be really put out by somebody thinking he was Sauron.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Halbrand,
definitely not Adar. Go ahead.
I think he's going to. I'm torn between whether he's going to step up to the plate and become a leader, or if he's going to betray all these people. The Stranger, I think, is leaning more towards the good spectrum than anything, but that could all be an act. So
Yeah,
I
they've
think,
really walked the line, or about are balancing him with, he tries to do good things, but bad things happen when he does things.
yeah,
But maybe it's not intentional. So they're really sort of balancing that.
yeah. So I think The Stranger is the only one who's still kind of on the table, but I think it's option 4, somebody we haven't met.
Yeah, that's where I am too. If it's one of the 3 that we've met, it would be the Stranger. I don't think we know nearly enough about the characters that you were talking about, Dan, to even have a glimpse as to what they are. So I include them more in the we don't know yet.
Yeah.
So it could be them or someone we don't know. And I think that is the most likely scenario at this point. And if it is one of the 3, it's the Stranger. But I'm less and less inclined to say that now. And then, who is everyone's favorite character in this episode or in the series so far?
For me, it's still Elrond.
Elrond?
Yep.
Yeah. I would say it was Durin, because he stole the table.
I love Durin, and I love the relationship Durin and Elrond have.
Yeah.
And I love that Durin's kind of like, you elves don't know anything about us, and I'm going to take advantage of this situation.
How about you, Dan?
Gosh, it's hard to pick a favorite. I still like Elendil. But he didn't really do much in this episode to sort of encourage that. He was a little bit dumb, but you got blind spots with your kids. I understand that. But yeah, I think it's pretty well balanced. I don't actually like. I guess the closest character to disliking is actually Galadriel. I don't think I quite dislike her, but I don't know. The balance of having an elf be very human-like, because it pushes the story forward and she's kind of our main hero, and also making them feel as if they have the wisdom of centuries or millennia of experience. I don't hate her as a character. I just doesn't quite feel elvish to me still. Other than that, I'm quite interested in the Stranger. We just don't get a ton of them. I think the Stranger is a really interesting character that I want to find out more about him. Honestly, more than any of the others, the other mystery ones like Adar or Halbrand, or even these new, elves or whatever they are that went to find the spot where the Stranger's meteor landed. But we don't spend that much time with him, and maybe now that he's learning a little bit of whatever the common tongue of the land is with Nori, maybe we'll actually get a little more characterization from him, because it's been a little bit one note to this point. But
yeah, well, hopefully. All right. Any final thoughts?
Oh, another night, good looking and sounding episode. Pretty well written, pretty well acted. No complaints. They've all been at the same standard. Which is to say pretty good. And if they, like I said earlier, if they're all this good, I'll consider it a good, solid season of television. I am just hoping that it escalates a little bit. I understand Matt just dropping some, craziness in and really like accelerating the storytelling. Maybe that's not the best, but it's just missing a little bit of magic somehow. And I just want them to grab a little bit of that in these last 3 episodes.
All right, well, with that, we're going to end this episode. We'll be talking about episode 6 next week, so tune in for that.
I caught it on audio.